Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Funky, and today I'll be going over part 6 of Java coding tutorial. And in this part, I'll be going over loops. So let's just jump right into it. I'm gonna get rid of all this code. This is from the last one. And there's a couple different types of loops. The first one I'll go over right now is a for loop. And let me just enter presentation mode. So the first one is a for loop. And if you don't know already, a loop just allows you to do the same block of code multiple times. And the reason there's different types of for loops is because they all do things a little differently for you. And they all have their own uses. One you're probably never going to use, but it's still there. But the first one is a normal for loop. And this then has parentheses. And you open this up, and inside the parentheses is the condition that needs to be met. And what we're going to want to do is just say int I equals 0. And this is initializing the condition variable. And then we're going to say I is less than 5. This is the condition that this condition variable needs to pass. And then we're going to say I plus plus. And plus plus is just an iterator. It adds 1 to whatever variable. You can also do minus minus. For simplistic reasons, I'm just going to say plus equals 1. Basically what that does is it adds this value to the one on the left. Or if you wanted to go like this, and you could say I equals I plus 1. They all work the same. And then inside of here, we're going to want to print out something. So we're going to want to print I. And this is going to be upset because it wants a string, so we're going to go like this. And then if we run this really quickly, then just like that, you can see that it printed out 5 times because we started at 0 and it kept doing it until it was less than, or until it equaled 5 because of this condition. And every time it went through this body, it added 1. And if we say, let's say add 2 to it, then you can see right here, it's doing it every 2 until it gets to that. And you can increase this number to whatever you want. This can be a lot more complicated, but this is the straightforward part of a normal for loop. And just because I don't think I've gone over it yet, the normal if condition is just if and then a Boolean statement inside with open and closed curly brackets because it's a body. And inside, it requires a Boolean, not a Boolean data type itself, but it requires something to be true. So we could do this, but it'd always be true. So let's say we're getting a value, right? If we have an integer that's equal to 5, then we want to say if value equals 5. And this is the assignment equals operator. This sets it, this variable to 5, and this compares it. This is a comparator operator. So this is going to return true. And you can see it's highlighted because it says it's always true. But if you're reading like user input, which I'll go over in a later video, then you could check if it equals 5. And that's super helpful. So this is the first one. The next one is a while loop. And just like an if statement, a Boolean needs to go in here. And as long as that Boolean is true, then it will continuously go inside this loop. And once it returns false, then it'll break out. So what we can say is int num equals 0. And then num is less than 5. And then inside of here, we can just say num plus plus. And then this will go until num is equal to 5, because that's when it breaks. If we set this to 7, it'll go till it hits 7, and then it'll continue past this. And this is completely interchangeable, so you could say less than or equals to, or greater than, equal to. It doesn't matter. Overall, it will work. It's just an if check. And you can do those inside of if statements as well. The next one is a do while. And this one is basically like 67 is fine. This one is basically like the while loop, but it does it once for sure. So it's super helpful if you're wanting to guarantee that a block of code is run once and then done multiple times if there's more than one. So if you have a list or something that you know guaranteed that it holds at least one value, then you could use this and then say while whatever the amount inside that list is greater than 1, do it. Of course, you could just do a while loop, or you could do a normal for loop. There's multiple ways to go about it, but this is just guaranteed. Do it once, where these have to succeed an if check, basically. They have to pass this or this before continuing forward. And then the last one is a for each loop. And basically the way this works, aren't you working for each? Thinking a different language again. Basically it's called for each. You can see that it says for there, but the difference is there's a colon here instead of a semicolon. And basically what this does is for each object inside of another object, it uses that inside the code. So we could have a list, and it could be a list of persons, and then call it people. And then that's equal to, and a new array list. And then we want to create some people. So person 1 equals new person. Let's just say person 1. Let's duplicate this, if I can speak. Person 2, and then shove this inside of there. So we're going to want to add p1, then people.add p2. So these two people should now be inside of this list, and I went over the list in the last one. So instead of grabbing the first index and trying to call something and then grabbing the second index, you might not know how many are in there. Maybe this is something where like it's a company that holds a list of employees. So you want to say for each employee, right? That's a lot easier than trying to figure out something else or like guaranteeing it. And with this, it might be a little easier if you're wanting to use each value instead of getting the index. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But all right, just like that, if you say for and then implicit each person, and then you want to name the variable because we're instantiating it inside of here, and then this would be the list. Now, it's able to do this easily because list has the ability to be looped through automatically because it's a built-in class, but if it's something else that doesn't have that already, or if you made your own, then you might have to get the data some other way. But with this, we can now say person and then get name. And we could print this out because get name returns a string. This should be fine actually. And then if we run this, let's get rid of this code. Then we should see right here person 1 and person 2. And that's very helpful because all we did was do a for each loop and we're able to use that person directly. Now, if we compare that to the other normal for loop, then we could say int I equals 0, and then we could say I is less than people.size because we want the size, and then I plus plus. And then we'd want to say people.get, and then we want the index. And once we get that, we're going to want to say get name. And then around that, we're going to want to print it. And this would work. But as you can see, now we're having to say people.get every single time before doing anything with that. And we have this whole thing, which can be a little confusing unless you're wanting to skip every other person or something specific. Where this is just super straightforward. For every person inside of people, we want to get their name. And the variable is initialized straightforward. And it's done for us. Super basic. But that's basically how you do all of the Java loops. Shouldn't be too difficult. I would say the for each and for loop you're going to be using most of the time, while sometimes, and then the do while, that's the one that you'll probably never use. I have only used it realistically only a couple times ever, compared to the thousands of times I've used for loops. So thank you for watching. Hope you have a good one. Bye.